Hi everyone, this is Emily with Happiness and Books. I have an Amazon book haul today. These are books that are perfect for seasonal autumn, fall, Halloween, maybe a classic or two I snuck in there. I've been sort of on a mission the last month or so to update my library. I have shelves of books, but mostly bins and bins of books in my storage locker because I'm sort of in the process of trying to get new shelves. Right now I have a lot of my collectibles on my bookshelves, but I've been realizing I've, read a majority of the books in there, and it's time to start, I wanted to pick maybe another 20 or 30 books to add to my library for the next couple of months. And in tandem with some classes I'm working on developing, Witches in Literature, a Gothic literature class, as well as a fantasy 100 top notable fantasy books from middle grade to adult book club that I'm looking at developing and starting. So I have this big reading list, this big TBR. Now, all of these books may not 100% be for those classes. Some of them I'm previewing. So for example, I might find some aren't going to be great enough to make the cut for the class, but they can be similar styles of books I can recommend to my students. So let me show you what I got. The first one is a middle school novel. It's called Juniper and Thorn by Ava Reed. And I just thought this had the most beautiful cover, like the colors are gorgeous. It's very fall and autumnal, just the colors in general. It's a fantasy, obviously. And so this is the same author of The Wolf and the Woodsman. I haven't read that, but it's been rumored in reviews and whatnot that it's a very astonishingly amazing novel, that it's just utterly fantastic. So let's look at the back a little bit. A gruesome curse, a city in upheaval, a monster with unquenchable appetites. Marlinchin and her two sisters live with their wizard father in a city shifting from magic to industry. As Obla's last true witches, she and her sisters as little more than a tourist attraction as they treat their clients with archaic remedies and beguile them with nostalgic charm. Marlinchin spends her days divining secrets in exchange for rebels and trying to placate her tyrannical, xenophobic father who keeps his daughter sequestered from the outside world. But at night, Marlinchin and her sisters sneak out to enjoy the city's amenities and revel in its thrills, particularly the recently established ballet theater, where Marlinchin meets a dancer who quickly captures her heart. So, we have monsters, old world power, magic, coming into your power, wanting a new life, going outside of norms, obviously, some love interest stuff going on here. But here this is the well-known book that the other reviewer that I decided to choose from had said was good, but that this one was better. So that's why I chose this one, Juniper and Thorn. And I'm really excited to read it. It is a witchy book. So again, you could read it for autumn and fall. Since I'm doing the witch course I'm developing in literature, we'll see if it makes the cut or if it's one that will be recommended additional reading. Here's one that's more horror based with a little bit of historical twist by Laird Hunt, In the House in the Dark of the Woods. The cover itself is kind of horror based. It just, as basic as it is, it just gives vibes of this is a dark book. It's very stark. The New Yorker magazine had said it's basically a very addicting and engrossing novel, and it's noteworthy. So let me read you the back of this one. And this was a New York Times book review editor's choice. Gosh, it's so hard to read, dark on dark. In this magical and frightening tale of colonial America, nothing is quite as it seems. A wife gone missing may in fact have fled her stifling and abusive home. The inviting splendor of New American wilderness may in fact be an orchestration by a malevolent force. A woman who lacks both voice and sobriety may seek freedom at the pride of damnation. Set against the eerie, dangerous world of bygone New England, In the House of the Dark of the Woods is a historical encounter unlike any you've read, and a novel you'll not soon forget. So, from what I do know of this book, it has trigger warnings, women were treated like dirt. Obviously, a lot of them were burned as witches during this time, but you know, abusive husband, do as you're told, don't speak unless spoken to, don't voice your opinions. In fact, right now I'm reading Slewfoot by Brahm, and it is also taking place during colonial America, Puritan village. It's frightening how she's treated in that book, although you don't see a lot of physical abuse going on, because it's more all the male townspeople trying to tell this female whose husband had died that she can't do the farm on her own, and trying to frame her to get rid of her and don't speak up, and religious punishment and all this stuff. So this sounds similar to that. It might be more psychological horror based, some religious good versus evil in here. I'm not entirely sure how it's going to play out. So I do think it's going to be kind of a good dark theme, not necessarily Halloween based, but since we're in October. So this is, I love the cover of this one. I have my doubts it's going to make it on my witch literary reading list for my witch literature course. It's The Honey Witch by Sydney Shields. I purchased it to see if it's going to be decent for recommended additional reading. I love the cover. To me, this takes place, or looks as if it would take place, more in the summer or spring, whereas not the kind of eerie, creepy October, autumn, you know, gray, misty skies and red and orange and yellow leaves kind of time of year. It seems more like she's a summer witch, not to mention we have the word honey in there. So we'll see. The honey witch is cursed to never find true love, but when she meets a young woman who doesn't believe in magic, she dares to hope for more. Marigold Claude has always preferred the company of meadow spirits to the suitors who've tried to woo her. So when her grandmother whisks her way to the tiny isle of Innisfree with an offer to train her as the next honey witch, she accepts immediately. But her newfound magic and independence come with a price. No one can fall in love with the honey witch. So this is a debut author, and some, you know, romance, forbidden love, also witchy theme. I'm getting more practical magic vibes. More like the kind of witch that can do like potions and medicinals and homeopathics and garden stuff, and a good witch, basically. So kind of the opposite of a lot of the ones I've chosen are darker witches. And in fact, looking at the witch as a literary canon and why witch fiction is so popular, ever since the stem of the Salem witch trials, and even further back, you go all the way back to medieval England. The reason it's so popular in literature today is what I'm really covering in that course. And the goal is to look at how witches are portrayed as literary characters, but also as almost its own genre. And also the psychological allure of why so many people are pulled to witch literature. But I don't want to only show literature with, you know, the Wicked Witch of the West, the dark witches. So sometimes some of my choices in the reading list will be women accused of being witches who are not really witches, good witches, bad witches, magical witches, young witches, horror, devil, terror, Wicked Witch of the West witches, and tying that into my historical context and analysis. So, but I have to preview at least, I think I have 50 books on my reading list before I really pick the 15 or 20 I want to put in the class. And this is not related to anything whatsoever, but just other than Halloween, but this is Grady Hendrix's How to Sell a Haunted House. This came out last year. I really wanted to buy it. I never did because I had a big enough novel I was reading at the time. And several other TBRs for that month. So this is basically a wildly entertaining kind of a haunted house, contemporary fiction. Nothing that I, you know, would probably put in a class, but I don't know. I haven't read it yet. So when Louise finds that her parents have died, she dreads going home. She doesn't want to leave her daughter with her ex and fly to Charleston. She doesn't want to deal with her family home, stuffed to the rafters with remnants of her father's academic career and her mother's lifelong obsession with puppets and dolls. That's me, actually, the doll part. She does not want to learn how to live without the two people who knew and loved her best in the world. Most of all, she doesn't want to deal with her brother, who never left her hometown, blah, blah, blah. Unfortunately, she'll need to help to get the house ready for sale until strange things start happening. So I don't know that it's like horror-based. I think it might be something more like you get in a, I don't want to say Hallmark, like a modern day TV haunted mansion, maybe, style. We'll see. A lot of it is more about being haunted about her past. So it's good contemporary fiction, good entertainment, good Halloween story, I'm hoping. So we will see. I need to get into that one here soon. I next have a book related to nothing whatsoever this time of year, but it's for upcoming Christmas. It's brand new. It is by Lori Gilmore, who wrote The Pumpkin Spice Cafe and the Cinnamon Bun Bookstore. It's The Christmas Tree Farm. It's her other brand new one that just came out. They all kind of came out at the same time. I think it's pretty and cute and very Hallmark movie-esque, and I'm enjoying it. I'm going to be reading her other two this next month in November. A small town, spicy, festive romance. Kira North hates Christmas, which is unfortunate since she just bought a Christmas tree farm in a town that's too cute for its own good. So, premise, cute little Christmas romance. I'm going to have to say probably very Vermont, New England, cozy feel. Whether or not it's any good. And anyone who, what do you think of this? Lori Gilmore. That's not her real name, I'm sure. Lorelei Gilmore, the Gilmore Girls. Cute, cozy, small town. Obviously, that's probably her pen name, and she's a Gilmore Girls fan, as I am, just saying. Kind of a quinkydink, if not. Okay, I have to show you this. It's by Deborah Harkness. It's Shadow of Night. It's the second book in the Discovery of Witches trilogy, which is known as the All Souls trilogy. I'm in book 1 right now, 3/4 of the way through. It's absolutely amazing and fantastic, and I will for sure have to include that in my class. However, I don't know if I want to do book 1 or 2 or 3 because I have to read them all. And yes, I'm watching the Netflix show in tandem. There's a bazillion more details and things happening in the books than in the show, as typical with Hollywood adaptations of books. And, oh God, what happened here? Bad hair problem. Woo. Bird's nest. This would be the book where they go back to Elizabethan England. So the first book, you know, she's discovering she's a witch. She falls in love with a vampire. They're being pursued by the Council of Magical Creatures who forbid mating or crossover relationships between different species. It's a type of a covenant, and they've broken it. So they're being hunted and stalked by the heads of this council. And she discovers she's one of the most powerful witches that has existed in hundreds and hundreds, if not 1,000 years. And she didn't even know she had all these powers. Turns out she's a time walker. She can go back in time. So they decide to go into the past, into Elizabethan England, to hide. Now, her love interest, Matthew, has been alive since like 500 AD because he's a vampire. So he actually lived in Elizabethan times, has a house there. So when they travel back in time to hide in the present day Oxford from this council, you know, they show up in Elizabethan England, well, Queen Elizabeth is old. She's probably in her 60s at this time, as far as how she's portrayed in the show. And I'm assuming in the book, I haven't gotten that far. They show up there in the night, and he goes right to where his house was and falls back into that time, hoping not cross paths with his current self living in that time. So it's very fascinating. It gives me complete Outlander vibes. I'll admit I'm almost on to season 3 of the show, only on the first book still of the book, and that's okay because they're different, and seeing the show helps me visualize some of the more difficult things that would be harder to bring to life in the book. So I'm very excited to read this. So far, it's an amazing series, and I love it. I'm very excited to read this for my witch class by Rachel Harrison. Cackle, I'm sure you've heard about it. I think it's a fun cover, has a magical spark vibe to it. It's supposed to be witty and dark and dry and very atmospheric for this time of year. A darkly funny, frightening novel. All her life, Annie has played it nice and safe. After being unceremoniously dumped by her longtime boyfriend, she seeks a fresh start. Annie accepts a new teaching position and moves from Manhattan to a small village upstate. She's stunned by how perfect and picturesque it is. The people are all friendly and warm. Her new apartment is dreamy too. Then she meets Sophie, beautiful, charming, magnetic Sophie, who takes a special interest in her and wants to be her friend. More importantly, she wants Annie to start living her own life and come into her own magic. Annie can't help but gravitate toward her, but then things are not always as they seem. So who knows where this is going to go? I don't know if this is an LGBTQ book. I don't know if it's more just she's drawn to this other magical person or this other witch. I have no idea. It's going to be a mystery. It is supposed to be very good. It's been a bestseller, so I'm looking forward to reading this. I actually prefer not to know a lot about books when I go into them. I also steer clear of buying the book that everyone else is talking about. I recently talked about in my vlog about the X-Hex, which is like this editor's pick on Amazon and a TikTok sensation, and you know, posed as this cozy Halloween atmospheric, autonomous, you know, Halloween read, giving kind of a sweet romance, Halloween, nostalgic vibe to the cover and how it's portrayed. And you get in there and it's like a F word every other page, and there's sex scenes and all these things. And it was terribly written, and the banter was catered to 20-year-olds, and I hated it with a passion. And unfortunately, I talked about that in my first week reading vlog, which I can link below toward the end. I was talking all about that and probably in a very negative manner, which I don't normally do, but I just couldn't help it. But anyway, so when every single booktuber is saying, get this book, I'm hesitant, especially because that's why I bought this book. It goes to show you how an amazing cover, some good advertising and TikTok, and some crafty creativity can sell something despite quality, I think. And of course, there could be some people in a younger age bracket who adore that book. I don't know, but I'm just saying that a lot of these influencers with 50,000 people on their YouTube channels are getting free books in exchange for doing reviews, and they have to hype it up. So anyway, I will always say what I think, good or bad. So I'm beyond honest in that regard. I don't pretend anything's good that isn't. And I always try to tell the pros and the cons of each. And I do also try to seek out older books, books less known, books that not everyone's talking about, that fit my theme, and read them with an open mind without having like known a lot about them, so that I don't go into it with this opinion. Like, I want to go into a book with a sense of adventure and discovery, if that makes sense. All right, so this is Wayward by Amelia Hart. This one, ironically, I got this on Book Outlet before I realized that people are talking about it all over, and apparently it was a book of the month. I only recently joined Book of the Month Club. I haven't even gotten my first book yet, so I probably should have waited and got it there. But Book Outlet was pretty inexpensive. This is supposed to be a good witchy book as well. I think the cover is gorgeous. I think it's going to be a good seasonal book. And this one elapses over different time periods. So 2019, under cover of darkness, Kate flees London for Wayward Cottage, inherited from a great aunt she barely remembers. With its tumbling ivy and overgrown garden, the cottage is worlds away from the abusive partner who tormented her. One that she begins to suspect her great aunt has a secret, one that lurks in the bones of the cottage. Then you go back to 1619. Altha is awaiting trial for the murder of a local farmer who was stampeded to death by his herd. When she was a girl, her mother taught her magic. Okay, then we go forward to 1942 as World War II rages. Violet is trapped in her family's grand crumbling estate. So basically I have three different women who are witches or accused of witchery, all tied together somehow to the same environment or location, and somehow it all comes together, which I don't know. But I think that's a fascinating concept. I'm really interested to see how that turns out. I love time travel. Well, I love time travel, sure. I love books that tie in times to different women. So if you've seen that show, it's really good. It's called, oh goodness, what's it called? The First Ladies. Was it a year or two ago out on like Cinemax or HBO Max? It was season 1. It was the president's wives. There was the young Michelle Obama, the young Roosevelt, I think, and the young Betty Ford. It's basically the lives of the wives of major presidents. It was a fictional show. It's really good. It was very well done. But they have the young versions of these three women, and then all the way up to how they meet their husbands when they're young, all the way up until later when they're president. And in the show, they show all these women intertwining and how they all made influence at different time periods in history. That's the kind of books I like as well, which Wayward seems like it would be like that. But that's a very good show. I think it's called First Ladies, I think. Okay, so this one I bought because of my witch class I'm developing, because of the cover, and because of the pink. Yes, I'm a pink girl. So this is Foxglove. Technically, it's book 2. And the first one is Belladonna, which I have not read. It's on my TBR to examine for my witch class, my witch literature class. But I wanted the whole series because I knew I was going to love them. And I love how they look. Because the other one has purple tipped edges, and it's got obviously that purple here. And I don't know that they can't be standalones. I'm not sure, so I can't say because I haven't read them yet. As someone who's written myself under a pen name and who works in publishing and who teaches literature writing and English, I can say that series novels are supposed to be able to be standalones as well as series novels, because you never know when someone's going to randomly come across book 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6 and didn't even know there was other ones before that and start reading it. It has to be a complete story in its own from beginning to end. So they can be in a series, a continuation, but also a standalone. So each book in the series, even if it's a continuation of characters from other books, has to have its own story within that book that technically could be read alone. And you wouldn't necessarily know you're missing what comes before or after. That's how you're supposed to write series fiction. All right. A duke has been murdered till the Lord of Thorn Grove has been framed. And fate, the elusive brother of death, has taken up residence in a sumptuous palace nearby. He's hell-bent on revenge after death took the life of the woman he loved many years ago. And now he's determined to have Signa for himself, no matter the cost. Need some coffee. Signa and her cousin Blythe are certain that fate can save Elijah Hawthorne from wrongful imprisonment if the girls would entertain his presence. But the more time they spend with him, the more frightening the reality becomes. Mystery and danger lurks around the corner. So it's a kind of a witchy fantasy book, and I think it's gorgeous. And if nothing else, you know, it's ironic. Now that I realize that the first book, Belladonna, I got at Barnes & Noble, and I think I showed that in my haul last week. I was at the center counter in Barnes & Noble where you go up and ask for help with the book. I was looking for Belladonna, that book, and where I was looking alphabetically in the fiction section, I could not find it. Turns out it was in some other section, not on a display table because of Halloween. And I went up to this center, and I was asking the guy where I can find this book, Belladonna. He was typing it in. And he picked up his phone to take a picture of the screen of the location so he could take me over to find exactly where it was. And as we were about to walk off, some lady came up to the roundabout desk and she's like, "Excuse me, can I ask you something really quick? Do you know where I can find this book series, Belladonna, Foxglove, yada, yada?" Apparently there's a box set that has all 3 books, and she was asking about the same ones. And it's apparently been getting a lot of visibility because of the time of year. And so I learned about it from, I think, Reader's Digest, but I don't know, people must be reviewing it because I just thought that was like the most ironic, interesting thing. And she had already asked, so she got the box set, and there was only one, so otherwise I would have bought that. However, the box set didn't have these Barnes & Noble exclusive editions. They're just white edges. So the exclusive editions have the color-tipped edges that matches the covers, if you can see. So like this one has the purple. So I haven't seen the 3rd book yet. All right, I have this book here, another Barnes & Noble exclusive that I had to buy for the cover, so I hope it was good because it's gorgeous. I'm so excited. It's The Throne of the Fallen by Carrie Maniscalco. It's absolutely gorgeous with these kind of mulberry, I guess, not lavender, not purple, not pink, kind of somewhere all in between. It's absolutely beautiful. I know nothing about it. This book here, Throne of Secrets, I just purchased after the fact. I haven't got it in the mail yet. So it's so pretty. Like I rarely buy books for the cover, but honestly, these 2 I did. And this, I was just randomly perusing the fantasy section. All right. A dark prince battling an impossible curse. And these are fantasy novels. And of course, for my fantasy book club, 100 Great Fantasy Books, analytical discussion mini class I'm developing, which probably will be hosted on Patreon. I was looking at adding this book, so I'm previewing these to see. The Prince of Envy has never claimed to be a saint, but when a cryptic note arrives, signaling the beginning of a deadly game, he knows it will take more than a hint of sin to win and save the falling demon court. Though none of his meticulous plans prepare him for her, the frustrating artist who ignites his sin. A mysterious artist has her own secrets. The trouble with scoundrels is that they haven't a modicum of honor. The fact Miss Camelia Antoinus learns after one of Waverly Green's most notorious rakes attempts to blackmail her. To avoid a scandal, she must enter a devil's bargain. So it's fantasy, but it's obviously romance-based. I'm guessing maybe it might be an R-rated? I don't know. I have no idea. Oh, it says right here, a seductive romantasy. Yeah, so romantasy is kind of a new wave of making into its own genre slowly over time, which is a combination of fantasy and romance, or romantic fantasy. So if you were to go to a Barnes & Noble to the fantasy section, at some point there might be a separate section that says romantasy. Right now it's just all fantasy, right? Based on alphabetical by author. What is my cat doing? You weirdo. Oh, you're eating a twig. Oh, anyway. But eventually you might have a whole section that says romantasy, which will be a separate genre, just romantic fantasy. Versus now we have dark academia, which is fantasy. We have YA fantasy. We have middle grade fantasy. We have dark fantasy, you know, so romantasy is one of those combinations. I have not read a romantasy labeled book until this, so specifically categorized in this new genre, so I'll be interested to see what I think, and I just think it's so gorgeous and I love it. Okay, that is actually everything I bought in this book haul. I have one more box of books that has not arrived yet, and it will be my newly updated library for the next several months. And if you join my channel, keep an eye out. I'll keep talking about when I release my book club and my classes. Those are going to be available to anybody who wants to take them online. I taught literature for years in the college level, and it was not nearly as much fun because it was all about writing papers, and I only had a loose say in what could be given for literature or studying and reading, and a lot of the schools I worked for, you had to teach certain books, which I didn't agree with. So I'm developing my own online lit classes, lit school, and it's a passion project, and I hope that you will participate and join. And thanks for following my channel, and I'll see you in the next video.